I'm Ms. Shackles here at Fulford Academy, and I will be conducting a lab experiment with you today for the grade 12 chemistry course. So to begin, the materials that you will need today, you will need a few things to complete this lab on your own. The first thing you will need is a dropper. The next thing you will need is a stir stick or something to stir your chemicals. You will need some distilled water, specifically about 150 milliliters of distilled water. It's important to use distilled water for this experiment and not tap water, as tap water has a lot of salts and other compounds inside that can have an effect on your experiment. The next thing you need is acetic acid, otherwise known as vinegar. You just need a small amount, make 50 milliliters or so will be sufficient for this experiment. You will need a 500 milliliter beaker or larger to conduct your experiment. If you don't have access to a beaker, any sort of large glass that is at least 500 milliliters will work for this experiment. For your chemical, you will need milk of magnesia. You can find this at any drugstore that you can purchase. Typically it's used for digestion issues. The last thing you need is a universal indicator. So this indicator you can purchase from any chemical supply store. It's important that you use universal indicator and not a different kind of indicator. Okay, let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your milk of magnesia. You're going to open it up. And you are going to pour it into your beaker up until 100 milliliters. After you have 100 milliliters of the milk of magnesia in your beaker, you can take your distilled water and you are going to pour it up until the 250 marker, which is right here. Okay, next I'm going to add a few squirts of the universal indicator. And while I'm doing this, I want you to think about what is universal indicator? What is it used for? Going to give that a stir. I'm just going to add a little bit more of the universal indicator because you want it to have a nice, good purple color to it. Okay, so it should look to be a nice purple color like this. Next thing we're going to do is you are going to take your acetic acid or vinegar. I'm going to add a few squirts of this to my solution here. While I'm doing this, I want you to start thinking about some questions that you might have about this experiment. Okay, so as you might have seen there was a slight color change. I'm going to add another few squirts here now, in case you missed it the first time. So as you noticed in this experiment, it started at this purple color and went through a series of color changes, eventually coming back to purple. So I want you now to come up with a question that you have about this experiment. What happened? Why did it happen? Any question you like. Not only do I want you to come up with a question, I want you to come up with how we can test your question. How can we find out the answer to your question? After you finish, pause the video. I will answer some of these questions and hopefully find an answer to your question. A common question that a lot of students ask in this is, what if I added all of the acetic acid? Would this affect the rate of color change in our experiment? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the rest of this beaker of acetic acid. So this is now approximately 70 milliliters of acetic acid left in here, and I'm going to pour it in this beaker and we will see what happens. And there you have it. So instead of staying purple, our experiment is staying yellow, but still very slowly, the solution is going back to purple. So So to explain to you a little bit why this is happening, we know that our milk of magnesia is a base, and we know our acetic acid is an acid. Okay? The universal indicator stays this purple color when the solution is basic. When we add the acid to it, the acids tend to stay a lighter color. So when we add the acid, it becomes a lighter color. However, since there is a higher quantity of base inside our beaker, it always will eventually go back to purple unless we add equal amounts of base and acid. Another common question that students have about this is, what if we went through this experiment without adding any universal indicator? So now we're going to do this experiment again, but we are not going to use the universal indicator. So once again, we will use our milk of magnesia, filling it up to the 100 milliliter mark. And once again, we are going to take our distilled water and we are going to fill this up till about 250. So we're going to stir it up. And what do you notice about the color? It's still white. Okay, there is no purple, there's no colors at all. Hopefully that answered some of the questions that you had about this experiment. If you didn't, you can drop me a message and ask me what happened in that situation, and I'd be more than happy to demonstrate that for you. In the package that you have received on Google Classroom, you should find the questions to answer in regards to this experiment. If you have any questions at all and you don't understand, please feel free to message me at any time. Thanks for watching.